Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're getting back into Marvel's Dark Ages, which again takes us to an alternate universe to where thousands of years ago, the Living Tribunal had pretty much just screwed over humanity. I blame him. Like, all of this is his fault, because had he just swept the Unmaker under a different rug aside from Earth, none of this would have happened, or at least it would have played out way differently. And come to think of it, it might have been worse. But either way, here we are, so let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so for this one, when we jump back in, we initially start off with Peter's commentary, with them talking about how good things were before the world had pretty much fell apart, and also in a way describing what used to be regular more or less as paradise, at least in comparison to the way that things have gone lately. But while Peter's saying this, we see Johnny flame on, and it's like, oh man, we about to jump right into it. But as it turns out, he's just heating up the kettle for the kids' tea party. And with the way he does it, you can tell he's being extra, like Johnny could have just used one hand and did this, but it's almost like he's trying to impress the kids, especially when he tells Jessica and Luke's daughter Danny, who's just blown away by the fire show, that at one point he had burned so hot that he had melted through Galactus. With innocent Danny not knowing what a Galactus is, Johnny gets ready to tell her, but then Peter's more or less like, nah bruh, chill out, because this moment's supposed to be a tea party for the kids to kind of take their mind off of things, rather than teach them about the many ways that the world had almost ended before. So more or less, Peter's telling Johnny to keep it light. But then it's here when Jessica arrives, and just by the look on her face, it's more or less like that reminder that this really isn't your keep it light type of story. Because when she gets here, she lets Peter and the others know that Tony Stark is missing. And it's right after this where we then go over to the Alchemist Cave, which is pretty much Tony's workshop up to this point. And it's here where we find Pepper with Blade, Honey Badger, and Laura Kinney, towards at this time where Pepper, she's already told them what she knows from the last time that she saw Tony. With Captain America popping up, him and Tony having a talk, to where shortly after, him and Tony went for a walk. And it's like right away, Honey Badger or Gabby, like her and Laura, they figure out that something's off because the scent doesn't match the story. And Blade, he's kind of quiet over on the side, because he's more or less like, well, seems to be no sign of a struggle. But for Gabby and Laura, who are pretty much doing all the investigating here, like right away Gabby notices that she doesn't smell Captain America's scent, and the scent that she is picking up is someone else, who Gabby doesn't necessarily recognize, but right away Laura knows who it was because she knows the scent of Mystique. And right away from there, Laura, she chases down Mystique's scent, which takes all of them to that spot behind the bushes where Tony got ambushed. Man, ambushed behind the bushes. Ain't that about a bush? But also with all of them heading out here, Laura also realizes that the attack from last night, with all the werewolves and vampires that had taken them to the southwest corner of the city, that it's highly likely that that attack was a distraction. But with them making it here to the spot where Tony was ambushed, Laura knows that Tony was definitely here. He was knocked down, but he didn't bleed out too much. And on top of that, Mystique wasn't alone. And aside from that, Blade, he sees all the ashes and he's just like, well, a lot of vampires died here, I'll tell you that. Dark Ages greatest detective. But also with them getting here, Laura, she picks up the other scents and she tells Pepper, I know who was here, I know who took Tony. And right after this, we jump to a meeting in the throne room and Dr. Doom is like, if Apocalypse has Tony Stark, then we gotta get him back quick. And it's not really so much the case of Doom being concerned for Tony's well-being, but instead he's well aware that if Apocalypse has Tony Stark, then it's highly likely that he's using Tony to build a weapon, and if they let that happen, then their chances are going to be slim at going up against whatever attack that Apocalypse has coming their way. And essentially Tony Stark in the hands of Apocalypse is just a ticking time bomb. But what happens is Pepper says she'll go in and she'll go after Tony, and quickly Peter and Johnny let her know that they're going with her. And while this is happening, Doom, he's a jerk. He's just like, tick tick, come on, gotta go. And of course he's doing it for the whole dramatic effect of Tony being a ticking time bomb like he expressed earlier, but really all this ticking does is just piss Johnny off because the tension of this situation is already enough as is, but also because for years now, Wakanda and all the other super cities, they've been avoiding any conflict with Apocalypse and his forces because of the weakened state of the heroes in the rest of the world right now, which not only has to do with the lack of electricity or power, but also the lack of manpower, which globally is in the billions at this point after the wars that broke out since the world went into darkness. And so because of this, T'Challa's like, you know what, though we can't rush into this, we do have somebody who can. And it's here where T'Challa then sends Quicksilver to race over to Europe and quickly just scope out what Apocalypse has going on so that he can then report it back to Wakanda and the rest of the heroes. And at this point, even though they know that Apocalypse has Tony, they still don't have a guarantee on where exactly Tony is. And all they really know at this point is the location of Apocalypse's base of operations, but beyond that, they really have no clue what he's doing up there, who exactly is with him, or what he's working on. And so when Quicksilver gets there, mind you, the plan was for him to just run around, take a look, and come right back. But when he gets there and he sees his father, Magneto, trapped in a Faraday cage with his powers being siphoned to block the EMP signal, and right away Quicksilver breaks his trajectory from just running through to then running around his father trying to find a way to break him out. And when he does this, right away he's spotted. And when this happens, you kind of have this moment to where your mind-controlled Reed Richards tries to catch him, but of course he can't because he's just too fast. But when Quicksilver leaps towards Magneto to like just break him out of there, he's shocked immediately. And when it happens, it kind of looks like one of those plasma balls that people would use for decorations in the 80s. And it kind of has me thinking like, man, so that's what happens when you touch him. But with Quicksilver being effectively caught here, Apocalypse doesn't keep him as a prisoner, but instead he sends Quicksilver racing right back to Wakanda. But when he gets there and T'Challa asks him to report on what he learned, and in response, Pietro is just quiet. And very quickly they begin to realize like this guy's not okay. And with seeing this, Jean scans his mind and she quickly realizes that he's not in control. And as soon as she says that, Peter's spider senses go off and right then Quicksilver just takes off. And once he gets moving, this thing escalates quick. Because first he snaps Okoye's neck and takes her staff, and right after Peter tries to web him up, but Pietro just dashes between each web line, and with him taking off with Okoye's staff, before Johnny can even say flame on, Pietro just impales him from behind, like in mid flame on. But with this literally happening within a few seconds, the only thing that's really quick enough to catch up with them is Jean Grey's telepathy, which she then uses to shut Pietro down, because Jean Grey's telepathy versus Kilgrave's pheromones and influence, there's really no match. And because of that, Quicksilver stopped in his tracks, and with him falling asleep in mid-run, he's left with no choice but to use his face as a brake pad. But even with this happening, it's still not over, because at this point Johnny is losing control, but before he completely does, Sue puts up her shield and she just sits there and she holds Johnny until the end. And when this happens, Johnny completely burns out, leaving nothing left of his body but ash. But as far as the scale of this ignition, it's nowhere close to like his Nova Flame, but instead it's more of just like a burnout that fills the room. But with this happening and Sue being able to put her shield up in time to protect herself and the rest of the heroes, I can't help but notice that she protected most of Quicksilver. Like, she left his legs out and I kind of feel like it was done on purpose. And though Pietro doesn't say it, I also imagine that he feels some type of way about it. But at the same time, like with the way that Kilgrave's influence works, it's not like Quicksilver wasn't aware of what was happening, but at the same time he just couldn't control himself. So at the same time, you can tell he's dealing with a great amount of guilt from killing Okoye and Johnny. But also at this point, with Kilgrave's influence off of Pietro, T'Challa's just pretty much like, okay, well, let me try this again. What did you see? And it's here where Pietro tells them everything about the pyramid full of electricity with his father trapped in the middle of it, but also that he noticed that Apocalypse was working on something. And alongside of him, he saw Tony there, Hank McCoy, Otto Octavius, Riri Williams, Reed Richards, and as soon as he says Reed, Sue loses it, because for the past 4 years she thought that Reed and Franklin were dead. And this is a crazy emotional tug for her, because just moments after watching her brother die, she now has hope that her husband and her son are still alive. But with the heroes hearing this, they make preparations to head to Europe the next morning. But when we then jump back over to Europe, we see that Apocalypse is well aware that the heroes are going to make the next move. And it's with seeing this that it's here that we get the teaser of what I believe is the new Miles Morales bonded with the Venom and Carnage symbiote, which I'm more or less just guessing from the cover art that we'd seen before. But then on top of that, you then have Apocalypse here talking about, are the 3 of you ready? And it kind of has me thinking like, oh boy, okay, first of all, like I need a whole issue at least that'll get into and let me know how this happened. Because I'd say as far as the Venom symbiote and the Carnage symbiote working together in this alternate reality and in the future, that part alone to me just makes sense, because for one, in this reality, from what it seems, there were never events like King in Black or Absolute Carnage, and because of that, the classic versions of these symbiotes, like I could see them come together in this Dark Ages event, in this alternate reality, if for nothing else but for means of survival. So to me, the combination makes sense. But then aside from them merging, whatever happened for them to then bond with Miles, or if they perhaps first bonded with someone else and then Miles, because with him telling Apocalypse that they are ready to hunt, like that in itself has me thinking a few things, but I don't want to jump into conclusions just yet. But I really do want to know how this happened. Like, I want a thorough story. And even if that doesn't play out in this event, I also wouldn't mind at least getting it in a spinoff. Just saying. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below. So you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts and your theories down in the comments below. And we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.